Tonight on Special Edition, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella on one of the biggest topics of the moment, artificial intelligence. Welcome to Special Edition. I'm Andrew Ross Sorkin. Over this series, I'm talking to newsmakers telling their story in a way you haven't heard before. This episode is dedicated to AI, and I'm going to be speaking with the head of Microsoft about the tech giant's partnerships with OpenAI, that's the company behind ChatGPT, and all the implications, the good and the bad, on our lives of this profound new technology. ChatGPT is the fastest growing consumer app in history. It is shockingly good at writing essays, helping people code, and simplifies massive data sets in a matter of seconds. When it launched last fall, it set off an arms race in artificial intelligence. As the influence of this technology is growing, so do the questions over safety, bias, and humanity.
Everyone has an enormous potential and enormous danger.
AI is so intelligent, it's open to the bad players.
It's not clear whether it's actually doing good or whether it's... I can't tell at this point.
OpenAI is partnering with Microsoft, a relationship that began back in 2019 when the tech giant first invested billions of dollars in the startup. This year, Microsoft poured billions and billions of dollars more into the company and made a strategic deal that sets up the pair as leaders in this AI race. Microsoft's Copilot tool, powered by ChatGPT, can now help you write emails faster.
Approve, minor edits, suggestions attached, have questions. You're giving it the simple prompt, and it goes in to write it.
Since this deal was announced, the company has gained $500 billion in value. This may be one of the most transformational moments in the history of technology. It's not just about the money and Wall Street. Artificial intelligence is going to change our lives and our children's lives. Many, though, are afraid, so much so that a group of scientists called for AI labs to press pause for 6 months on any new work. I sat down with Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella at the company's campus just outside of Seattle in a wide-ranging interview where we talked about the power and, yes, the fears surrounding this new technology. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
There is a big question about whether all of this is moving too fast. What do you think?
The way I think about this is the following, right? Which is, in an interesting way, a lot of technology, a lot of AI is already there at scale, right? Every news feed, every sort of social media feed, search as we know of it before chat plus search. They're all on AI, and if anything, they're black boxes. They're more, I describe them as the autopilot era. So in an interesting way, we're moving from the autopilot era of AI to co-pilot era of AI. So if anything, I feel, yes, it's moving fast, but moving fast in the right direction. Moving fast where humans are more in control. First of all, humans are in the loop versus being out of the loop. It's a design choice, which at least we have made. So I feel that it's more important for us to capitalize on this technology and its promise around human agency and economic productivity, but also, Andrew, to your fundamental point, I'm also thrilled that we're having the debate simultaneously. While there's excitement about the new tech, we're also talking about the unintended consequences versus waiting for 10 years, right? Because we've not made that mistake before.
What scares you about this?
What scares me the most is what I'll call it societal choices do we make given this new technology. This is not like, sometimes I feel like some of the times all the technology is talking to other technology. I think the fact that we have to make political and cultural and societal decisions that help us get the balance right, which is we definitely want the benefits of this technology and we want to mitigate the unintended consequences. The leadership that's required and the coming together of all the parties that is required is challenging, but it has to be done. And that's what scares me, and also that's why I think a broad engagement, right? This is not about the experts in AI talking to themselves and scaring each other and the world. It's more about the entire society having a good civil dialogue on how to both maximize the opportunity and mitigate the dangers.
Okay, so we, by the way, went into the chat tool in the new Bing, and we said, what worries you about the impact of artificial intelligence? And it said the impact of artificial intelligence is widely debated. Many argue the AI improves the quality of everyday life by doing routine and even complicated tasks better than humans can, making life simpler, safer, and more efficient. That's the good news.
Yep.
This is your own service saying this. Others argue that AI poses dangerous privacy risks, exacerbates racism by standardizing people, and costs workers their jobs, leading to greater unemployment. How would you grade that answer?
It's balanced, right? So it talks about both, and it requires. In fact, one of the things that I did was I said, okay, what if Spinoza, Kant, and Nietzsche were all sort of having a dialogue on AGI or this next generation technology? What would they come up with? And in fact, it's very interesting because if you think about it, these three guys who helped in the Enlightenment era, humans really understand how to deal with essentially the scientific revolution and the subsequent industrial revolution, helped us adjust and helped human minds adjust to all this change. And they came back, like the thing I like is that categorical imperative that Kant said is what we should do, which is maximize the benefits, mitigate the challenges.
Right. There's a whole bunch of scientists and others that you know who said, look, we need to slow down here.
I think what they're saying, at least if I go back when we say slow down, I think what they're saying is speed up some of the core research that needs to happen around what is alignment, right? Because if you think about it, one of the core challenges in AI, even like if you take what we had to do, in fact, the hard work, there was a lot of hard work done to build GPT-4, but there was also equally hard work to do, take the base model and align it so that we could deploy it in something like Bing Chat.
Do you think there's going to be more jobs in the end when this is over, or less?
Great question, right? So here's the fundamental thing I think about. That lump of labor fallacy, as the economists call it, right? At least it's been disproven up to now, right? Every time there's been new technology, there's been real displacement, and that's a real challenge. I at least fall into that camp, right? So let's think about this, that there will be new jobs. Who would have thought that there will be a prompt engineer, right? But it is a job. And by the way, you don't have to have a CS degree to be a prompt engineer.
A prompt engineer being somebody who literally prompts it by saying, please do X, Y, Z.
XYZ. So that's just one example. But
and that's going to be a job.
That's going to be a job, for sure. And the job, as I said, like here's the other thing, right? As we speak, one of the things that's most exciting to me is we have 100 million software developers in GitHub today. With this coding assistance now that we have with Copilot, I think there can be 1 billion developers. In fact, the world needs 1 billion developers because if you look at the number of sort of every company is a software company, they need more software developers. So the idea that this is actually a democratizing tool to make access to new technology and access to new knowledge easier so that the ramp up on the learning curve is easier, that's one. Second thing is frontline workers. One of the most exciting things for me is somebody who is in the front line in a factory, in retail, in healthcare, can literally sketch up an app they want and take a photograph and have it build it, right? So think about that. Like you are now an IT person as long as you have some domain expertise. And the thing that was most mind-boggling for me, Andrew, was in January, I was in India. And I had a chance to see this demo where a farmer was speaking in a local language, Hindi, wanting to get some subsidy from the government. And in India, there's an unbelievable revolution happening around digital public goods. And so they have the speech-to-text, text-to-speech public good. So one developer in India sort of basically works in Microsoft Research, working with the government agency there, put together this solution which daisy-chained GPT with all of the trained model or text of the Indian government. So this farmer was able to express a complex thought, where he said, I just want the subsidy I heard about this program on television. And it comes back and says, fill out these portals, go to this portal, fill out these forms. And he says, look, I don't know what a portal is. I don't want to fill out a form. Can you do it for me? And so he used even the transformer models, action transformers to do it. I mean, that was just unbelievable. The thing that is unbelievable is not just the technology, but the fact that something that got built a couple of months earlier in the West Coast of the United States had diffused so fast to a rural Indian farmer, that's kind of unbelievable.
Okay. You've got 2 daughters.
Yep.
I've got 3 kids. How is this going to change education and the idea of what people, the next generation, are going to have to know, need to know? They will have access to all sorts of information, but will they ever have to know how to write again?
Well, it's kind of like, do I know how to multiply, right? I mean, when was the last time I did mental math on multiplications, right? So here, a couple of the comments. One is, one of the dreams of this, which I know people like Reid Hoffman and Bill and others have also talked deeply about, is what if all the children of the world have an AI tutor. What if an AI tutor could engage a student and really help them get the concepts?
Right.
Because if you think about it, right, education today is sort of intimidating, right? You can sort of say, hey, look, here are the Feynman lectures, go read them and you love physics. I mean, I don't know who reads them. I mean, like, I never read them in school. Like, if only, I think about it, like, if I had this AI tutor, I would have been a better student. I would have been more engaged. I would have been more curious because the sort of the fear of learning goes away. So that's the first thing. And the other point to your thing is, we will learn new skills. I'll tell you what, like, this co-pilot pattern has made me a better editor, right? We sort of put a lot of emphasis on creation, not as much in fact-finding and editing. Maybe that's at a premium. So therefore, I think we will adjust to work with these tools. Critical thinking will still be very much what humans do, but I think that there is an opportunity for us to retool ourselves with new tools.
If you were talking to kids today and you were saying, here are the skills you're going to need in the future, knowing what you know, what would they be?
Steve Jobs had this beautiful, beautiful line, right, which is computers are like the bicycles for the mind. We now have an upgrade. We have a steam engine for the mind. And so what I would say is kids should do all the things that now allow us to do with this augmented tool. And things like critical reasoning, being able to be more creative with the machine, to be able to sort of not be afraid of learning new things. That's one of the other fascinating things. I'm not afraid. Like, biology is one place where because I can't read one of those nature papers and understand anything. And now I feel like, God, I can attempt it. Like, what is this?
Because it's going to summarize it for you.
It'll summarize, it'll teach me. See, the beauty of the chat interface or on the web Copilot for Bing is the PDF is right on my left, and I can keep asking it. It's kind of like asking a personal tutor. Like, my daughter described this to me, which she said it's kind of like having a friend and a tutor always with you while you're reading.
Still ahead, I asked Microsoft CEO how worried he is about AI playing a negative role in the upcoming presidential election campaign.
Does AI further accelerate and give tools? Absolutely it does. And so therefore I think, but at the same time, it's not new.
OpenAI was founded on the belief that artificial intelligence has the potential to improve nearly every aspect of our lives, but also that it creates serious risks we have to work together to manage. We believe that the benefits of the tools we have deployed so far vastly outweigh the risks.
OpenAI CEO Sam Altman testified on Capitol Hill about the potential and threats of artificial intelligence. I asked Microsoft CEO about their partnership. We've heard Sam Altman, the co-founder of that company, talk about coming to visit with you. I think it's Sun Valley, looking for, frankly, money and a partnership. Is that how it began?
Yeah, in fact, I've known Sam for a while now. In fact, the first time I met Sam was when he was running his startup, and I was running Bing in 2007-8. And they actually, OpenAI, I forget now the exact year, maybe 2016 even, or 2015, whenever they started on Azure. And then I reconnected back, that's probably right, 2019 or seems, before that even.
There was a bit of a battle as to whether you should do this. This wasn't an easy decision, right?
Correct. I mean, there are a couple of things. OpenAI, as I said, it's got a very mission-driven company, right? I mean, it's a company that is formed with the foundational idea that, look, this is technology that they're going to pursue and build and make sure the nonprofit at the end of the day is in control of this technology so that it can benefit the world. And they're very, very, driven by it. Anybody who joins their mission joins for that mission. And so it was very important for Sam and his team that they found a partner who understood that, right? And so that's why we were comfortable with it. In fact, to me, one of my dreams is, the only reason why I want to work in information technology, I want to work at Microsoft, is to really be part of that democratizing force this time around so that the technology goes away.
And I don't know if you saw Elon Musk's comments about the relationship between OpenAI, something he co-founded, and Microsoft. Even though OpenAI is a not-for-profit, he effectively said that he thought that the company was effectively controlled by Microsoft now. And this was something that he was unhappy about.
Microsoft, in effect, Microsoft has a very strong say, if not directly controls OpenAI at this point.
Look, first of all, I have a lot of respect for Elon and all that he does. I would just say that's factually not correct. I mean, as I said, OpenAI is very grounded in their mission of being controlled by a non-profit board. We have a non-controlling interest in it. We have a great commercial partnership in it. And quite honestly, I am very comfortable in partnering with a capped profit company that has a mission of fundamentally pursuing this very powerful technology that ultimately is going to be controlled by a nonprofit. In fact, the last time I checked, we are the only for-profit company that is comfortable with a nonprofit company and a board controlling technology, and I would welcome others to do that as well.
Right. So I'm going to make you king for the day. Yeah. How would you regulate this?
One of the first things, like we have done with cyber and other places, it will be good for companies, we don't have to wait for regulation, for all to have either standards or adopt the NIST standard and use that as, I'll call it, the start of any self-regulation.
Right.
Then on top of that, if you talk about regulation, maybe we can unpack it from the application domain, right? Because after all, context in which something is being applied, right? Or it's being applied in education, it's being applied in healthcare, or it's being applied in retail. So I think we can have the regulatory frameworks that already exist in all these, whether it's consumer safety or financial regulations or what have you. We can have the current regs just hold AI accountable like they hold everything else accountable.
Do the regulators know enough to be able to deal with this? Because some of this AI, it's unclear whether the engineers know enough. There are times when these things are hallucinating, right? And that's uncontrollable at this moment.
Yeah, so this is where I think a little bit my approach at least would be regulators know what they're doing. They've, and in some sense that's the fact that we are having this dialogue, right? We were all, a couple of us were at the White House a few weeks ago and having a dialogue. OSTP, Arti Prabhakar and Gina Raimondo and the vice president and all convened folks to have a dialogue, and I'm sure they're having dialogue with many other teams as well. That's great. And so to me, I don't think it's just a question of some technology knowledge. It's just a question of, hey, how do we make sure that this stuff gets deployed so that really the benefits of this are protected?
The other question I wanted to ask you about is big tech and the idea of incumbency. We did an interview with Lena Khan. She said that she believes effectively that AI and these type of investments are going to help the incumbents, that actually it's going to be almost impossible for the smaller players to ever win, given the infrastructure that's required for them to succeed.
We've seen how these technologies really thrive on huge data sets, huge amounts of compute power, and that certain larger firms may have an advantage. What we need to do as law enforcers is ensure that the types of opportunities and openings for competition that these moments of technological disruption can present, that those moments are not being squashed out by the incumbents.
It's a much more dynamic world. I mean, OpenAI is a startup, a couple of hundred people. Inflection, small startup, Character.ai, Cohere.
Could a small player win today in this space?
Could. I mean, it all depends on what happens, right? Which is what's the product market fit that one of these folks finds, right? It's not a given that, whether it's Alphabet or Microsoft are the only two games in town. I'm glad. I mean, think about this, Andrew. Right. Who would have thought last year if you were sitting here and somebody had said to you, oh, you know what, there will be real contest around search, right? And people may actually have even a dream that there's an alternative to Google. There is not just Bing. There is ChatGPT and Bing, and there is lots of other folks who have entered the search market. I mean, that to me is sort of be celebrated.
We're going to have an election. We're going to have an election in a year, effectively. How much do you worry about AI impacting that? Being used for nefarious purposes, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, right, today, the disinformation, misinformation campaigns by states that, are well-funded. In fact, Microsoft's been doing a lot of work on disinformation, right, and we kind of understand, for example, in particular, the Russian operation around it. There's $1 billion spent and translated into 20-odd languages, and targeting is involved in it, and distribution. And so therefore, the question I think you're asking is, hey, does AI further accelerate and give tools? Absolutely it does. And so therefore, I think, but at the same time, it's not new. And so therefore, I think that this is not about AI itself.
But will it be more prolific?
But I think that techniques, even like the cyber attacks are more prolific, and what have we done? We've sort of said, okay, let's get our defenses. So I would go back, distribution, like a lot of where does it get distributed? Guess what? It's distributed in news feeds and social media and other places, on the web. There's a lot we can do in search and in things like chat to make sure the distribution is one level. Targeting, they're all spending money, by the way, guess what? Using advertising dollars on what? Social media, search, and other places, and YouTube, and what have you. So let's have a conversation about which business model is funding, in fact, the dissemination of all of this. Right. And so I think there's lots of things in our control, as opposed to saying this is the one tool, because after all, the problem exists today.
And coming up, Microsoft CEO weighing in on the debate over plagiarism in an AI-powered world. Welcome back to Special Edition. I want to get back to my conversation with Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. I asked him how the concepts of plagiarism and copying in our increasingly AI-powered world will work. What do you think of the idea of plagiarism? I mean, what's going to happen to writing and the idea that you can or cannot copy somebody else's work?
First of all, there is a legal side to it, what is copyright, and then how we really have a framework of law on protecting what is copyrighted. And then there is what is derivative work, what is original work, and all of this, let's sort of set aside. I'm not a lawyer, let's set aside what the legal framework is. But I would say all of us build new knowledge on old knowledge. And if you sort of go with that premise, this just accelerates that.
As an author, I could write a new book. I could go buy 30 books, I go to the library and read them for free, learn a lot. I could even quote from those books. And I don't owe a licensing fee to those authors, but I did pay to see those books. If AI reads those books once, they're not just helping one author. They could be writing millions and millions and millions of books. And so how does that model work?
That fair use argument is there today, right? Like, for example, AI search, right? We use search. It reads the web once and serves it to the world, right? So if we want to start sort of talking about, like, what is fair use of what is there in the public.
But there's a way for people to monetize that, right? Because these links send you back to sites where then either there's advertising or a subscription service or something like that. In a chatbot world, it may be one way. No?
And if it is, there will have to be an economic model, right? So that goes back, like, if there is no incentive structure which allows for the people who produce original content to get compensated, then that'll be a problem. So the way, at least I look at our business model fundamentally, that's why citations will be important. I think about the contract. Like, I think the question is, do publishers allow AI to crawl, let's just say? They will only allow it if they see economic return. And we, as providers of, let's say, chat with search, have to be grounded in that. And we have already announced that, hey, we will have ad units that we will share, economics around it. We will actually drive traffic back to.
Have you spoken with Barry Diller?
I'm talking to Barry briefly, but I'm sure, we'll have more dialogue.
You saw what Barry Diller said.
I actually don't know what he said.
He effectively said that he wants to band together the entire publishing business to effectively sue in advance because he believes that this is so dangerous to the world of content and copyright.
First of all, I think anyone who says, look, anything that is just doing aggregations, I would just say, Barry, should start, let's start all the way with all of the places, like starting at search, right? And if the bar is, I like the bar of like, hey, this should be as good for publishers, if not better, as current aggregation points of news aggregation, search aggregation, social media aggregation. They're all lots of places where this happens today. And if this thing somehow is not actually helping more publishers, then let's talk about it.
Did you see the movie Her?
Yes, I did.
Mr. Theodore Twombly, welcome to the world's first artificially intelligent operating system.
Is that the future?
In parts.
Is that good or bad?
If done right, it can be great.
You saw the end of the movie, though.
How many others?
$641.
No, let's not skip that. Let's avoid that.
Satya, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in. We're going to see you next time right here on Special Edition.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.